The story today revolves around the mysterious vanishing of Courtney Holden, a 27-year-old Native American woman. In the U.S., Native American females face a risk of violence and harassment that is more than double that of any other demographic category. The majority of these assaults are perpetrated by individuals who are not Native Americans. Courtney was officially reported missing in 2019, but her actual disappearance occurred prior to that. She was last spotted approximately a year and a half before her official missing status. Those who were closest to Courtney maintain that she simply encountered a new romantic partner and departed with him, leaving everything behind, including her own child. However, was this truly what happened? Courtney Karina Holden entered the world on February 28, 1992. The circumstances that led her to a shelter remain a mystery. Akin to most youngsters, she harbored dreams of being adopted from an early age. However, her desire morphed into a nightmare. At the tender age of 4, she was placed with a foster family. Prior to that, the young girl had navigated various shelters until she found herself in the Holden couple's home in Spokane, Washington, where they were already nurturing several foster children. The Holdens also had 3 biological children, 2 grown daughters who resided separately in different states, and a son, Joshua, who lived permanently in the family abode, while all these foster children came and went. Courtney spent the majority of her life with the Holdens and was ultimately adopted by them. This implies that before the adoption, the responsibility for her well-being was divided between the guardianship authorities and the guardian. There is scant information about the girl's life itself, her interests, hobbies, or academic performance. However, one thing is evident: she resided in the Holden household for a considerable period. At the age of 20, Courtney found herself alone in the house with her adoptive mother, Judy, as Judy's husband had passed away by that point. Josh had departed temporarily. During this time, the young woman encountered a young man named Michael. She became pregnant, and they welcomed a baby boy. However, the couple soon parted ways. Michael did not obtain legal custody of the child. Their little son remained entirely under Courtney's care. The young parents attempted to officially share the responsibility of the baby so that the son could spend time with both parents. In 2019, Courtney was residing in her own house in Spokane with her adoptive mother, her 7-year-old child, and her adult brother, Josh, who had returned to the family residence by then. Her ex-boyfriend, Michael, had long since started a new relationship with a woman named Autumn Schatz, and it was this woman who initially raised concerns about Courtney Holden's disappearance. Friends, over 90% of viewers watch videos without subscribing to the channel. Check if you're subscribed. If not, please be so kind as to subscribe to the channel to support me. On October 5th, 2019, Autumn Schatz contacted the police and reported that she and Michael had not seen Courtney for the past year and a half and were currently unable to reach her as well. The young woman was deeply concerned that something might have transpired and requested a welfare check at the Holden residence. It appears that her call was not treated with urgency, as it is unusual to raise the alarm after such an extended period. Furthermore, Autumn was essentially a stranger to Courtney. The young woman had an adoptive family, and they had not filed any reports regarding her disappearance. The following day, October 6th, Michael, the child's father and Courtney's former partner, decided to call the police station himself to clarify the reasons for their concern. The man informed the authorities that despite the fact that the mother had full custody of his son, they had an arrangement for joint parenting of the boy. They had agreed on this many years prior, and Courtney always treated Michael's presence in their boy's life with great respect. She herself had lost her parents at a young age, so she did not wish to deprive her son of his father's attention. Courtney was an exceptional mom and prioritized her child's feelings above all else. Regrettably, it happened that Michael had not seen either Courtney or his son for the past 2 years. He explained that he had experienced a very challenging phase in his life. The battle with substance abuse compelled him to temporarily stop seeing his child, and as soon as he finally overcame his destructive addiction, another crisis emerged in his family. Now that everything had settled down and he felt he could properly care for his son again, The man attempted to contact him through his mother, but encountered unexpected difficulties. The truth is that Courtney had no social media accounts, no mobile phone, and not even her own vehicle. Michael and Autumn tried calling the Holden residence and even visited there, but they were turned away. No one could explain where Courtney and her son had gone. Judy did not even allow the child's father to enter the house and refused to call the boy. Michael was perplexed as to why Courtney herself did not come out and clarify the situation, because even if something had changed in their relationship, he should have been the first to know. On October 8th, 2 days later, the authorities finally arrived at the Holden's residence to ascertain why Courtney was not in contact and if everything was all right with her son. However, the patrol officers also encountered a wall of misunderstanding. The Holdens were completely unwilling to cooperate from the very beginning. They refused to allow the police to enter the house. When asked to come out for a conversation, they reluctantly answered the questions posed. Their behavior alone raised concerns. Eventually, Judy and her son Josh explained that Courtney had been in the house just a few days prior, after which she departed with her new boyfriend, taking the child. The Holdens could not say precisely where Courtney had gone. Moreover, they could not even name the man, claiming that she just got up and left without providing a proper explanation. For some reason, the relatives were certain that the young woman and her son were fine. The police immediately sensed that something was amiss and asked to write down Judy's phone number so they could contact her if necessary. The woman reluctantly agreed, went into the house to get paper and pen, but closed the door and locked it behind her. The authorities, alarmed by such behavior, immediately declared Courtney Holden and her son missing. Despite the fact that Josh and Judy claimed that the mother and child were safe, a minor was involved in the case. The police needed to see the boy and inform his father that the child was secure. Almost immediately after the young mother and her son were declared missing, the police received another disturbing phone call. The woman on the other end of the line identified herself as Courtney Holden. She explained to the dispatcher that she was completely safe. Her son was with her, so she asked to stop the search and not interfere in their lives. The caller categorically refused to come to the station and meet in person, blaming it on being very busy, and then disconnected altogether. It would seem that this was the best possible outcome of the case at the moment. The missing persons were found, but the police found something suspicious about this call. Therefore, the disappearance case was transferred to a detective from the Department for the Investigation of Serious Crimes, and he immediately developed a flurry of activity to clarify the details. The officer began to reach out to all of Courtney's acquaintances to establish a more accurate date when she was last seen. Perhaps the woman told someone else where she was going to go with her son. But all these conversations only brought a terrible reality to the forefront. The detectives managed to contact Courtney's biological brother Reuben and his girlfriend. They both confirmed what Autumn Schatz had said. It had been at least a year and a half since their last meeting with their sister. According to Reuben, Judy and Josh gave them the same arguments as they did to the police, stating that Courtney had run away with her new boyfriend. There was only one significant difference. The young woman did not take her son with her, leaving the boy in the care of her adoptive mother and brother. And this was verified information because Reuben and his girlfriend had been to the Holden's house many times since then to visit their nephew. The boy had indeed been living under the care of his grandmother and uncle all this time. However, these visits were more than strange. Reuben's girlfriend was also named Courtney. When they came to the Holden residence, Joshua asked her to use a different name, reasoning that the boy would be upset when he heard his mother's name. But what is even more peculiar is that the child called Judy Mom and Josh Dad. The Holdens themselves addressed Courtney's son by name, but it was not the name that his real mother had given him. In addition to Reuben, the detectives also spoke with other acquaintances and close relatives of the Holden family. None of what other people said fit into a clear picture. Everyone had their own story about the young woman and her son. What the Holdens told the police was completely different from what they told other people. Judy informed the patrol officers that Courtney, together with her son, had only recently left the house, having departed just a few days ago. However, other witnesses insisted that they had not seen the young woman for at least a year. It was all very suspicious. On October 10th, the authorities went to the Holden house again, and this time wanted to look inside. However, they were met with undisguised irritation and resistance. It was quite evident that Judy and Josh still did not want to cooperate. Josh didn't even tell the law enforcement officers that he was aware of Courtney's call to the police station. The man genuinely did not understand why they continued to search for his adoptive sister if she had made herself known. In the end, Judy relented and agreed to let the detectives inside so they could inspect Courtney's room. The elderly woman vigilantly watched to ensure that the police did not wander around the house or look into other rooms. At one point, one of the officers disappeared from the hostess's field of vision, standing behind a closed door. Judy literally went berserk. It seemed to her that the detective had entered another room without her knowledge. There was fear in her eyes, although she tried to hide it behind a mask of indignation. The investigators wondered what they could find that Judy Holden was worried about. Courtney's room did indeed look abandoned. All sorts of unnecessary junk was piled up there, and it seemed that the room had not been used for a very long time. There were no sheets or pillows on the bed, just a bare mattress, and there was a layer of dust everywhere on the surface of the furniture. So the claim that the young woman had left this room just a few days ago did not correspond to reality. In addition, there were many clothes left in the closet. It was unclear why Courtney had not taken them with her if she had decided to move to another place. After inspecting the missing woman's bedroom, the officers wanted to take a look at the nursery where her son lived, and this time, Judy could no longer conceal her fear. She started screaming, referring to the violation of her rights, and simply kicked the police out of the house. Something was clearly happening in the Holden residence, and the authorities intended to find out what exactly. Over the next few weeks, detectives interviewed various people who could provide any clues as to the exact time of Courtney's disappearance. Everyone the police talked to, including the missing woman's relatives, other members of the Holden family, and close neighbors, painted a truly grim picture. Investigators were unable to find a single person, with the exception of Judy and Joshua, who had seen Courtney in the last 18 months. It turned out that the life the young woman led in the Holden residence was a real nightmare. According to neighbors, the events taking place behind the closed doors of this house had been causing alarm for many years. The center of all these concerns was Joshua. People who lived nearby, and even relatives, described him as a cruel, unbalanced, unpredictable, and dangerous person. He had a very short temper. He absolutely could not control it. Acquaintances insisted that everything was so bad that even Josh's own mother, Judy, was afraid of these manifestations of aggression, and his criminal past confirmed all these fears and concerns. Josh's history was quite extensive, including things like domestic violence, burglary, unlawful restraint, and intimate violence. He had real charges brought against him back in 2005. However, because the victim was terrified and refused to cooperate with the investigation, and also due to the lack of direct evidence, the charges were eventually dropped. At one point, Joshua publicly boasted that he could easily take a person's life and easily dispose of the body. Even if this phrase is far from reality, it can say a lot about the personality of the person who said it. Josh left home for a while, and Courtney finally gained her long-awaited freedom and was able to breathe a sigh of relief. That's when she met Michael and became pregnant by him. But just a couple of years after the birth of her son, Joshua returned to the Holden house. According to neighbors, the situation began to change for the worse. Josh immediately installed surveillance cameras throughout the house, and after that, Courtney and her son practically stopped going outside. On those rare occasions when someone living nearby saw her in the backyard, the young woman was usually doing some housework. Neighbors tried to talk to her over the fence, and Courtney complained to them that her brother was raising his hand against her while demonstrating bruises all over her body. Usually, these conversations did not last long because Joshua would run out into the street and start yelling at his sister. After he caught Courtney chatting with neighbors several times, she and her son were forbidden to go outside during daylight hours, and even at night, Joshua's screams often rang out, insisting that his sister return inside. Somehow, Courtney still managed to get close to one neighbor and obtain an old cell phone. Thanks to this, the young woman could safely call at night because everyone else in the house was asleep. Since she had virtually no opportunity to communicate with anyone, she often called the neighbor in tears and told her how unhappy she was and wanted to get out of there. Courtney was practically a prisoner in the home of her adoptive parents. She was too scared to run away because there were cameras everywhere watching her every move. Moreover, she could not disappear, leaving her young son behind. Many people noticed what was happening in the Holden house, but none of them even thought to report it to the police. All the neighbors saw the plight of Judy's adopted daughter, but no one lifted a finger until she disappeared. Human indifference is sometimes striking. Now that Courtney is gone, so many people have stated that they wish they could have done more for her. Neighbors regretted that they tried to intervene and somehow help the girl. According to numerous witnesses, Josh and Judy never called Courtney by her name. Although they adopted her at a young age and the girl lived with them into adulthood, they called her Cindy, short for Cinderella. This directly corresponded to how they treated her. All she did every day was housework. The situation in the Holden residence became complicated around the time when Michael, the father of Courtney's son, stopped coming over, having become involved in the use of illegal substances. The woman was left alone with her problems in a family where she was treated like a servant. All this led to a horrific altercation between Courtney and the Holdens in July 2018, witnessed by a neighbor. This person claimed that one fine day, Courtney burst out of the doors of the house where she lived, dragging a sports bag behind her. Judy was chasing after her, shouting for her to come back immediately. Courtney snapped at her adoptive mother and said that she was not going to stay there for another second. She had had enough. She was struggling to drag the heavy bag and continued to move away, but then Joshua appeared on the porch. He was 5 feet 11 inches tall and weighed over 290 pounds. He instantly caught up with his sister, picked her up in his arms, and carried her back into the house along with the bag. The doors closed, and no one saw Courtney again. When neighbors asked the Holdens where their adopted daughter had gone, they were all told different things. Some were told that she had run away that very night, others that she had left with her new boyfriend, and still others were told that Courtney was safe and sound at home. Judy gave various reasons why her daughter could not come out. Her main goal was to convince the neighbors that the girl was okay, so that they would stop asking further questions. But after that incident, Courtney never appeared in the backyard again, neither during the day nor at night. However, on that same July night, one neighbor saw Josh digging behind the house. When Holden was asked what he was doing at such a time, he calmly stated that he was making a playground for his nephew. The legitimate question arose as to why he was doing this in the dark of night. Courtney vanished. She was no longer seen after the escape attempt, and according to eyewitnesses, her young son lived in the Holden house all this time. Thus, the police were able to establish an approximate time of disappearance. They were able to confirm it through medical records. The girl was taking prescription drugs. She would get a prescription from the doctor every month and go to the pharmacy to replenish her supply of pills. The last time this happened was in July 2018. She was no longer seen at the pharmacy after that. She had been taking medication for quite a long time and always strictly followed the doctor's instructions. But in August, Courtney's prescription remained unfilled. As witnesses, the police found other foster children who had been raised in the Holden home. One of them was a young man named Jensen. For some time, he and his biological brother were taken into the care of Judy. Despite the fact that the guy was already an adult, he still shuddered when talking about the horrors that took place in this family. He lived there from infancy until the age of 12. Every day, he and his brother were in fear of who would become the punching bag that day. Joshua constantly chose a victim and bullied them all day long. Courtney also lived in the Holden house at that time, and she got no less than the boys did. According to Jensen, it was terrible to experience constant beatings, but seeing new children come and also fall into the hands of this villain Joshua was much worse than experiencing it himself. They lived in a real hell. It is unknown how it would have ended, But eventually, Jensen's brother got tired of this life and grabbed a knife. He could have cut one of the Holden family members, and after that, their older sister took them in. If Jensen's brother had not gotten tired of the way Josh treated him and had not lost his composure, they themselves might no longer be alive. As soon as the brothers left this terrible house, all of Joshua's anger switched to Courtney. Now Jensen was 100% sure that their friend in misfortune was no longer alive. He did not doubt for a minute that she would not have run away, leaving her son in the care of Judy and Josh, because anyone who lived in that house would never leave their child with these monsters. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you like this video. It's really important. Jensen believed that initially, the Holdens took children into their family only to get assistance from the state. They needed money, and then it all grew into physical abuse by Josh. The authorities, to be honest, were shocked by the avalanche of information that hit them. At that moment, they firmly felt that the Holdens were concealing something. The biggest problem was Courtney's son. Over the past year and a half, many people had seen the boy in the company of Judy and Josh, but the Holdens themselves, for some reason, denied that the child was in the house. The last time a neighbor saw him with them was on October 10th, the day the police came to check Courtney's room. It was no wonder Judy got nervous when they asked her permission to see the nursery. The hostess did not allow them to rummage through her house. After that, she tried to show the law enforcement officers the door, hinting at the absence of a warrant. When detectives began to study other aspects of Courtney's life in detail to sort out this case, they caught Judy and Josh red-handed. Despite the fact that the young woman had not been seen since July 2018, her bank account was active, and funds were regularly withdrawn from it, including the withdrawal of $600 on the day she was declared missing. The police decided to check the surveillance cameras at the ATM to see who was withdrawing the money. It was possible that it was Courtney herself, and then the case would have taken a completely different turn. But instead, they saw the mother and son Holdens withdrawing money from an account that did not belong to them. Courtney also had food stamps for herself and her son. Although the woman had already been declared missing, someone was using the stamps. Surveillance camera footage confirmed that it was again Judy and Joshua. In addition to the fact that the mother and son Holdens were evasive towards the detectives, they calmly spent money from bank accounts and bought food at the expense of the missing Courtney's stamps between July 2018 and October 2019. On October 24th, the police obtained a search warrant for the Holden house. The officers were already ready for anything. They hoped to find Courtney's son as soon as possible and hand him over to his father, and then find out where the child's mother had gone. However, when the patrol car drove up to the house of Judy and Joshua, they were gone without a trace. The elderly mother, adult son, and 7-year-old boy simply fled the house, taking 6 animals with them. It did not seem that they were preparing to move. Most likely they took the bare necessities and urgently left the house. Along with this, they took a video recorder that stored the history of recorded video files. The police continued to search the house, trying to find anything that could lead them to Courtney, Judy, or Josh. They discovered several things that heightened concern for the young woman. It was Courtney's ID, as well as her personal diary, a notebook where the unfortunate woman recorded all her experiences. It could give them some idea of what she had to endure. They also found 18 cell phones, several computers, and handwritten notes about blackmailing several people in the house. A team of dog handlers with sniffer dogs trained to find human remains walked through the area. The dogs behaved calmly and did not find anything of interest to the investigation. The likelihood that the woman could have escaped leaving her child behind decreased with each passing day. Unfortunately, there was also no evidence that Courtney Holden was currently alive. The police threw all their efforts into searching for the fugitives Judy and Joshua, but how did it happen that they illegally took Courtney's son with them? The detectives were able to discover that the fugitives got rid of their old SIM cards and acquired new phone numbers with a Texas code. However, this also did not bring them closer to the answers. A month later, at the end of November 2019, vigilant neighbors called the police and reported that someone was in the Holden house. When the patrol car arrived at the residence of Judy and Josh, the owners themselves were not there. Inside was one of Judy's daughters with her husband. The couple flew in from Texas to check on the house. In a conversation with the police, they told conflicting stories about the whereabouts of Courtney's son. Judy's daughter insisted that the child had gone with Courtney, while her husband reported that the boy had come to Texas with Judy and Joshua. The daughter explained to the detectives that her mother was retired, so she decided to travel around the country with her son and grandson. It turned out that all three of them, since the boy was still with them, unexpectedly appeared at her son-in-law's house in Texas on November 26th. Judy ordered her daughter to immediately go to Washington State to check on the family home. The influence of Judy and Joshua on their older daughters was evident. The mother and brother made the women say and do everything they needed. A little later, the police contacted another of the Holden daughters, and also learned something interesting. It turned out that the phone call to the police department, allegedly on behalf of the missing person, was made by the second daughter. It was she who, on the orders of her mother, called, introduced herself as Courtney, and said that she was all right and did not need to be looked for. In December 2019, the police tracked down the Holdens in Plano, Texas. They were living in the house of their eldest daughter while she and her husband flew to Washington. The boy, Courtney's son, was indeed with them. The child was immediately taken into custody and later transferred to the care of his biological father, where he remains to this day. On December 19th, both the mother and son were arrested. They were charged with identity theft and kidnapping of Courtney's son. At that time, they were not charged with anything regarding the disappearance of the young woman. Judy and Joshua were questioned about what might have happened to her, pointing out the numerous inconsistencies and lies in their statements, but they both claimed their innocence and refused to talk, insisting that they had nothing to do with her disappearance. The Holdens stuck to their version that she had run away with a new boyfriend. Judy and Joshua did not agree to be extradited back to Spokane. They knew that if they returned, they could face serious charges related to Courtney's disappearance. The Holdens even hired a lawyer who fought for their release, citing Judy's age — she was about 75 years old at the time — and the health of 40-year-old Josh, who allegedly had a suspicion of a brain tumor and mental disorders. They remained in a Texas prison, where they refused any communication with detectives. The defense attorney repeatedly stated that the boy, Courtney's son, was safe and sound, and that accusing the Holdens of taking care of the child while his mother was somewhere arranging her personal life was pointless, as it was not a crime. The lawyer advocated for their release. In fact, he laid the blame on the shoulders of the missing Courtney, saying that she was a mother who had abandoned her child to her elderly mother and sick brother. Moreover, the defense attorney was sure that the young woman was alive and well, and even intended to find her himself to help prove his client's right. Unfortunately, his words remained empty air, shaking in an attempt to sway justice to his side. It was discovered that from the state of Washington, the Holdens traveled to an RV park in Oklahoma, where they registered under false names. They spent the entire month of November there before heading to the home of one of Judy's daughters. Later, the police searched the car and trailer belonging to the Holdens but found nothing there that would assist the investigation. Judy and Joshua behaved suspiciously, lied to the police several times, fled the state, registered in a trailer park under false names, changed phone numbers, and for some reason took the video recorder from the house. What else did they need to do to raise police suspicion against them? Ultimately, both the mother and son were released from federal custody due to the pandemic, considering the crimes they committed not to be so serious. In 2021, they both pleaded guilty. Joshua Holden agreed with the charges of identity theft and second-degree kidnapping of Courtney's son. He was sentenced to 135 days in prison, with credit for time already served. Judy Holden also pleaded guilty to illegally taking her grandson away without warning anyone. Judy and Josh are currently at liberty. They have served their sentences for the crimes for which they were found guilty. Due to lack of evidence, neither of them was charged with the actual disappearance of Courtney. The question of where the young woman is now and what happened to her in the house of her adoptive family still remains unanswered. Authorities have stated that the case has reached a dead end at the moment. They have appealed to the public with numerous requests to provide any information about the disappearance of Courtney Holden. However, no reliable information about her fate has been received. Law enforcement agencies have made every effort to sort out this case. They interviewed dozens of people, searched the house and the territory with the involvement of service dogs, and traced the entire path of the fugitives to Texas. But the case did not progress from its point. Everyone who knew the girl, including the police, believed that she was no longer alive. No arrests have been made in connection with her disappearance. Unfortunately, Courtney's case remains unsolved. This is the end of the story. Like the video and leave your thoughts in the comments. This was Jeremy. See you soon.